Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to discuss 5 helpful tips to help your car reach 300,000 miles. The first tip, frequent oil changes. Now with both this vehicle and the Highlander, Toyota says that the vehicles can go 5,000 miles between oil changes, but I personally do it every 3,000 or 6 months. It's also important to use the grade of oil your vehicle calls for, in this case 530. And yes, there are guys who say if you have an oil leak or past a certain number of miles, you can use a thicker oil. But I want to debunk that whole idea right now. If your car calls for 530, that's what you should be using for the lifespan of your car. If your car is leaking oil, you should find out why that is. Tip number 2, service your transmission. A lot of companies are now saying their transmissions are sealed for life. Even my Highlander says that, no need to replace ATF under normal driving conditions. But we all have different driving habits, so define normal driving conditions. Stop and go driving is harder on a vehicle. Towing is harder on a vehicle. If you love to speed, that's harder on your vehicle. If you frequent Lake Tahoe, Highway 50, those hills. So again, I ask, what are normal driving conditions? Tip number 3. If you're going to drive your car to 300,000 miles, at some point it's going to need help. So when that time comes, find out what's wrong with your car. Don't fall into the idea of, oh, it's an old car, who cares? Now, obviously, if the car is still running okay and it's either feed your family or fix the car, then do what you got to do. But if you want 300,000 miles out of your car, you can't ignore things when they come up, at least not long term. Tip number 4. When things do break down, use quality parts. For instance, this car has a new radiator hoses, and a new thermostat, all of which are factory Toyota parts. The alternator and rear struts I got at AutoZone, and I'm going to tell you a story about AutoZone. So a few years ago, I was trying to track down a damn P171 code. I got a MAF sensor from AutoZone, hoping that would be it, and of course it wasn't. Well, I put that MAF sensor up and forgot about it until about 4 months later. So I took it back to AutoZone and I told them, look, I know it's been about 4 months. If you can't refund me, I understand it's my fault for holding on to it this long, but I'd like to at least try. Well, AutoZone gave me a refund 4 months later. And tip number 5, keep an eye on your car. Keep an eye on both your fluids and your filters to make sure they're not low or dirty. Make sure your car doesn't overheat when you drive. When you work on your car, do some preventative inspecting. And that is how you can get your car to 300,000 miles. And don't forget, new videos every Sunday. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I will see you guys next week.